Today we're going to attempt to smoke a brisket. I've never done this before, but we're going to give it a shot. This one has been in the fridge for a couple days. It was in our freezer. I'm going to be using the Big Bowl brisket rub today. So first we're going to wet the meat a little bit with some water. And then we're going to very liberally pour our seasoning or our rub on. The brisket comes from the front part of the cow. It is a kind of a tough cut of meat unless you cook it with a very moist heat cooking method. Okay, and then we're going to do the same thing to the other side. Notice the first side that we did had a lot more fat on it. That side we're going to make sure and put up whenever we put it in the smoker, because we want those fat juices as they cook to run down through the meat and give it a lot of flavor. So we're going to rub that in a little bit so that it sticks, thus the name dry rub. Alright, so now we're just going to leave that on the counter and sit for an hour. We want that rub to just soak into the meat. We want it to give it a nice bark as it cooks on the smoker. Okay, so the smoker's not working right now. So we're going to plan B and we're going to cook it in the oven. So the temperature on the oven's at 350 and we're just going to roast it in an open pan for an hour. It's already been in there about 30 minutes. Has about 30 more minutes to go, and the fat side is going to be down right now. And I'll show you why when I switch it to a different pan. Okay, so I am going to move the brisket from the baking sheet to a little thicker pan now so that we can put some juice on it. I wanted a nice bark on this side before I switched it to another pan. So that's why I put it in the baking sheet first. Don't make too much of a mess there. Okay, so now it is fat side up now. I'm going to scoot that over just in the center a little bit, maybe if I can. Okay, and I'm actually going to put a little bit more of our dry rub on it now. Lots of fat juices there, and so it's going to soak it up really nicely. You'll see how that's kind of soaking in nice and neat. We're going to make some beef stock to put around our brisket. This is just some beef bouillon. You could use powdered or condensed or liquid, just about anything really. And I have 3 cups of water, and so I'm going to need 3 teaspoons. And you see this is actually falling out fairly easily compared to what it does sometimes. I just put a tiny bit of vegetable oil in my measuring spoon before I put the beef bouillon in so that it would come off the spoon just a little bit easier. And then this is 3 cups of hot water, very hot water. And we're just mixing this together. I'm not sure if I'm going to need all that or not, but if not, I can throw it in the freezer and use it for soup later. All right, so then I'm going to pour this into my pan, and I want to go about, a 1/2 inch to 1 inch up on the bottom of the pan. So the recipe says now to lower the oven temperature to 300 and cook for 4 hours, but I actually want to lower it a little bit more than that. Since I couldn't use the smoker, I want to cook it nice and slow, and I don't want it ready in the middle of the afternoon. So I'm going to actually lower my oven temperature to 250 degrees, and then I'm going to wrap it nice and tightly, and then I'm going to cook it for, about 4 hours. In the oven. So remember I told you this was a tough cut of meat off of the brisket of the beef animal at the very top by the neck. And so we want to cook this using a moist heat method that's going to put some moisture into it. And we want to cook it very low and very slow because we want this meat to be nice and tender when it's done. And so that's why we put some stock in the bottom. We're gonna keep in the moisture. We're gonna cook it for 4 hours at a really low temperature. So this will be just nice and fork tender by the end. Okay, so we're gonna go ahead and slice this meat, and remember we talked about slicing it across the grain before, and we're gonna follow that same rule. This is actually a serrated knife, but sometimes it's a little easier to slice meat like that.